Brilliance Audio.
A Silent Way to Die by N.R. Daws. Performed by Sarah Zimmerman. Detective Inspector Jonathan Kember of the Kent County Constabulary put down his bone-handled knife and fork and looked up with inquiring eyes. The merest smearing remained on the plate after his meal of sardine fritters, meant as a lunch but much delayed by his chasing of ever-elusive black marketeers. On his day off, too. Never mind it being nearly the shortest day of the year. It had been his shortest day off of the year. Alice Brannan, joint licensee at the Castle Pub in Scotney Village, with her brother Leslie, a pinafore tied around her slim waist, and tight blonde curls contained beneath a scarf tied in a turban, reached forward to take his plate. "Would you like some pudding, Duck?" Kember smiled up at Alice's expectant face, her cheeks ruddy and eyes bright. "It's stewed rhubarb," she said. "The Taplow sisters had a bumper crop this year, so we bought and bottled some to tide us over the cold months." "That would be lovely," Kember said, struggling to keep his smile fixed in place and not wishing to seem ungrateful. Stewed fruit had never been his dessert of choice, but rationing had rather reduced everyone's choices, except for the rich, of course. "I'll fetch you some," Alice said, leaving Kember alone in the empty saloon bar. He could just see through to where Les Brannan was locking the door of the public bar as the last customer left on the stroke of the 2 o'clock closing time. At the mention of their names, Kember's thoughts had turned to Elsie and Annie Taplow, who ran a bed-and-breakfast establishment at the northern end of Scotney Village. They had experienced the horror 5 months before of renting one of their rooms to a woman pilot from the Air Transport Auxiliary, who had become the first victim of the Scotney Ripper, as he had been named. That had been the day his serial adulterer wife had thrown him unceremoniously and humiliatingly out of his own house in Tunbridge in order to install her latest lover. He had stayed at the castle during the murder investigation before enduring a few weeks in Pembury Hospital, recovering from an injury to his leg from an exploding grenade as the killer had tried but failed to flee from justice. The doctors had removed all the shrapnel, but he often fancied he could feel something still in there. Kember felt bitter about being suspended over his handling of the investigation, a decision he had brooded over in hospital, giving his doctors the erroneous impression that he was suffering from mild depression. A shortage of policemen at Tunbridge, combined with his status as a seconded Scotland Yard detective, meant his discharge from hospital had coincided conveniently with his reinstatement. Kember had almost laughed at the absurdity. Almost. With no home left in Tunbridge, he had taken up the Brannans' offer of a reduced rental for one of their rooms. He'd offered the full rate, but they'd insisted, stating the gratitude of the villagers for his work in making Scotney safe again. But it hadn't all been down to him. Alice returned with the warm dessert and spooned a dollop of mock-clotted cream over the rhubarb, which immediately started to separate as the margarine melted. Even though Alice was a couple of years younger than him, Kember felt like he'd returned home to his parents. She fussed, clucked and smothered, and he let her, enjoying being looked after at the end of increasingly difficult days working out of Tunbridge Police Station. For an extra fee, she washed and ironed his clothes, and had proven a dab hand as a barber, offering to give him the occasional trim for another fee. He'd have to get another place of his own, sooner rather than later, but the arrangement suited him, for now. She was still apologizing for the lack of real cream when someone rapped on the door of the saloon bar. A chill draught sliced into the pub like a shard of ice as Alice answered the door. "Good afternoon, Alice. Is the inspector at home?" Kember recognized the voice of the village policeman, Sergeant Dennis Wright, and was already standing when Alice brought him through. "Sorry to disturb you, sir," Wright said, his large frame and neatly trimmed beard appearing around a glazed partition. He held his helmet under one arm. "You're needed at the station." Kember sighed. And there goes my afternoon, he thought. Many believe their time off should be sacrosanct, but his chosen career, and especially the war, had taught him that crimes and criminals followed no rules. "Is it something you can deal with? Can't it wait until Monday?" "The duty sergeant at Tunbridge asked me to pass on a message." Wright raised his chin to stretch his neck muscles and flicked a glance at Alice. I'm afraid not, sir.